end issues that I've gotten an email that I was going to share with you, and I can't really get to them very easily right now. So what I'm going to just do, I'm going to just kind of quickly remind everyone of the time of year we're in, right? It's November, it's almost Thanksgiving, and it will be Christmas before we know it. In January, not too far after that. So in the blink of an eye, this year is going to be gone, and next year will be started and we'll be off and running. As a reminder, there are some things that you really need to be on the lookout for. I believe sometime next week, the FINRA renewal window opens. So please be on the lookout for that, because this stuff always happens around the holidays. And thinking, it's always a bit of a challenge, because everybody's busy with holidays and travel and other things with business and family, and all of a sudden you've got this FINRA renewal. So please be on the lookout for the information from us and from Lincoln on your FINRA renewals. It's coming up. Again, I believe the window opens next week, and it doesn't last very long. So we need you to pay close attention to that. There's also some CE and other things that typically people have to get finished at the end of the year. Please be on the lookout for any communication you have from us or Lincoln between now and the end of the year to make sure that you're, doing all the things necessary to keep your licenses in force and keep your CE up to speed. Other than that, I think rather than spend a lot of time on just kind of announcements, what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about Marty Miller and why we have Marty presenting today. As I mentioned at the outset, we're quickly coming on the end of the year. And so this is typically the time when good business owners take stock of their business. They look and kind of grade themselves and their business on how they did this year, and then begin making plans for next year and in years beyond that. So what I've asked Marty to do today is to talk a little bit about that, to talk a little bit about business planning, to talk a little bit about keeping score and kind of helping perhaps guide all of us through a process of being mindful in the way we operate our business, so that we're heading towards a specific business result that we're looking for, rather than just allowing the business to happen haphazardly. Marty is someone that we've known for a long time. Many of you that have been to capital analyst meetings in the past would probably recognize Marty. She has worked with a lot of the more successful advisors and firms, not just within the Lincoln Capital Analyst family, but also with many other independent advisory firms across the country. She's very, very good at what she does, and has been very generous with her time with us, and was appreciative of our invitation and jumped on the opportunity to talk to all of you today. So without any further ado, I think I'll introduce Marty and let her get started. Marty, you there?
Yes, I'm here, John. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes, so however good I am at what I do, I'm less good at webinars. But it will be fun, and I've looked forward to the chance to talk to you guys today, guys, and I'm sure gals as well. So hello, everybody. Let me see. I think I need to hit show my screen. There we go. Stephanie was great at running me through this exercise ahead of time. Okay, so just for my confidence, can someone tell me that you're seeing my screen now?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, all right, great. Okay, so we named today's presentation Breakthrough Planning for a Bigger Future. And just a couple of things before we get started. This is probably not necessary, but just to be really clear, today we're talking about breakthrough planning for you, for your business, and also it always impacts your life as well. That's what we're talking about, not to be confused with the great planning work that you all do for your clients. Second thing I wanted to say is that the planning process that I share with you today will be available to you. I know John and Stephanie have that organized so that they will be sending an email with attachments and stuff like that. So anything you see today, you'll have available to you if you choose to use it. And the last thing I want to say before we really get started is that if you have any questions, I really feel like they might serve the group better if you ask as we go versus maybe holding to the end. Like I said, I don't have a ton of webinar experience. I'm not sure how that goes, but I'd like you all to feel free to unmute, and ask a question if you have it as we're going. Okay, so the first thing I want to make clear is this term bigger future. Bigger future, it just refers to whatever it is that you're excited about. So I'm not sure exactly who's on the phone, but I am certain that you all have different things you're excited about achieving in the future. You're different people, you're at different stages in your career and your business development. So, it's not a one-size-fits-all thing, but the bigger future is anything that you personally are excited about. And breakthrough just means, finding a way to eliminate whatever has caused you to be stuck, and not eliminate whatever problems you've been experiencing. So that's a breakthrough. Obviously, we all know that. So, as a bigger future, some of you might say, I want to triple my revenue, or I want to, triple my profit. Or for some of you, you might say, I'm really happy with all of that. I just, what's important to me is just making work and life more enjoyable. But the thing about a bigger future is that it always requires something to change. So one thing that I definitely know about financial advisors, because I work with them all day, every day, is that you have worked really hard, and many of you still are working really hard, and you've taken risks that most people would not. The thing that's great about that, I guess the great news in that, is that hard work and risk have really earned you a freedom that a lot of people don't have, and it's the freedom to design the business and the life that you really want. So if you just think about that for a moment, you've done everything you could possibly do to have that freedom to design your business and design your life, and yet I'll throw myself in this group too. There's those days where you say, I must be crazy because I've done all this and yet I haven't designed something that makes me really happy. So I think that's my passion about helping people get engaged with planning, because there's so much that they can do because of what they've done in their life. All right. Well, I was really thinking about how do what would be the most helpful thing I could focus on today besides just the plan. And, as a practice management coach, I've worked with a lot of advisors and firms to help them with their planning. And the one thing that isn't talked about very much, but that I've observed firsthand, are the obstacles that you face with planning. So I thought today what we would do is focus on the obstacles and compare that to the planning process, kind of go back and forth and see how a planning process can actually eliminate some of those obstacles. All right, so now I'm supposed to click. Yay. All right, I'm gonna fire my PowerPoint guy because that is really not a very exciting looking font there. But it says the 6 obstacles to breakthrough planning. And that's what we're gonna talk about. I'm a huge believer that all progress begins with the truth. So we're just going to really take on these 6 obstacles right now. Okay. So the first obstacle is that you're not clear about what you want. Pretty good picture, huh? If you're not clear about what you want, for any of us, when we're in that situation, we really don't take much action. We don't get excited about going to the planning table when we're not even sure what we want. We're going to avoid the planning process. So knowing what you really want, and you're all leaders in your firms, whether you have 1 person or 10 people, knowing what you really want is the heartbeat, it's the motivation, it's the necessity for meaningful planning. And nothing will really ever happen without clarity on this level. I think because you guys are busy, you're serving a lot of clients, there's a lot of urgent issues every day. It's really normal to feel detached from your vision. And so what we really need in the planning process is something that can help us tune in. So let's see, sorry, this is the first time I'm going to switch to the Yay. So the first piece of the planning process that I use, and this is time tested, I always, it evolves over time and things like that, but I use these things over and over again. The first thing is called capture your vision. And it really helps you think about, what are you excited about? What do you want to do? What do you want to change? Why? So this says right here, the purpose of this exercise is to paint your ideal picture of what your business looks like 3 years from now. And I want to pause right there. The 3 years is really important. I've tried 1 year, I've tried 5 years, we've tried all of that. 3 years is the best. So just do that, because 3 years does a couple of things. One, it helps your mind just skip over whatever challenges you're facing right now. You have a belief that what you're thinking about in 3 years is possible. Whereas if I said 6 months, you'd say, no, that can't happen. So 3 years is really good. And it also, it has a way of capturing the things that really are 5 and 10 years in your mind. If you have that far of a vision, the 3 years will reflect that. And the 3 years also makes it very easy to back into, what are you going to do this year to get there? So from my experience, I strongly recommend thinking in terms of 3 years. So again, you need to, you have to do this by yourself. If you have a partner or partners, you should all do it, but do it individually first before you put anything together. And you want to be relaxed. You want to be in a good situation where you can really think big and think clearly. It should be a fun kind of an exercise to go through. Right here, I can't stress this enough. Do not concern yourself with how you will get there. Some of you are more prone to that, but just try to eliminate or just suspend your concerns about how you will get there, and just think about what you're really excited about, what you want. All right, I say here too, there's a little bit of instructions. Page 2 includes prompting questions in case helpful, because this is basically a blank sheet, but there's some great prompting questions. Of course, I've stolen from everything I've ever seen or read down here. So you're thinking about 3 years from now. How do you feel? Why do clients select your firm and stay with you? Why do team members select your firm and stay with you? What do your financials look like? How is your life and work integrated? How are your day-to-day operations running? Who have you added in those 3 years to your team? What personal goals have you achieved? How does the office environment look and feel? You could create your own, but I find that sometimes some people don't need these, and other people really love the fact that they can have some prompting questions. But the idea is to sit alone somewhere and just put on paper, get back in tune with what you're excited about, what you care about, and just, you might have 3 things, you might have 50 things, it doesn't matter. But just, this is the starting point of a planning process. And like I mentioned, if you have partners, they should do it independently as well. So I just took the liberty of putting a few things in here just to give you an idea. I put, we are working 4-day weeks with greater impact and enjoyment. Maybe that should say I. Everybody else has to work. Our client planning process is excellent, and we are well prepared for meetings in advance. I've never met a firm that didn't want that. Our daily operations run well without me. We've started doing an annual valuation of our business. My time is spent in areas I enjoy and make impact. My work hours are tied to results, not time. Our marketing plan suits us and connects with the right audience. We have identified the important business stats for tracking and have an accurate monthly reporting process. I feel healthy. It can be personal, all these things entwined. So just be kind of real free with yourself to complete this. Okay. Let's see here. Am I going to have to do this on all 6? I don't know. Okay. The second obstacle to planning for you guys is that there's never enough time to plan your awesome business. Okay, so there's 2 angles on this that I see everywhere. One is, the second one we'll get to in a minute, because I think that's the bigger problem, which is what this guy represents. I mean, he's just really struggling with racing always against the clock. His parachute didn't open. But there's another thing I see regarding you creating time to do the necessary planning. And that is that some advisors don't yet recognize themselves as business owners. And they still believe that client activity is the only useful way to spend their time. You're the ones that say meetings, schmeetings kind of thing. And I'm surprised at how often I run into that. And I'll say this, hopefully you remember this. No matter how good your cash flow is, your business will build more equity if you allocate time to planning. And that's one of the beauties of being a financial advisor and building a practice or a firm, is that you not only have cash flow, you also are building equity. But the equity, they're really increasing and changing, like everything else, the way they view equity these days. And so cash flow alone is not as strong as it used to be. Okay, now if your issues are more like this guy in the drawing, who's feeling great time pressure, I really encourage you to just take charge of this problem. Each of us are the only person on the planet that can take charge of our time. That's just a fact. Other people, even those that love and care about us, will consume our time. We have to take charge of our own time. And another thing about time is that I think our natural tendency is to try to create more time or manage time, by squeezing this and squeezing that or making efficiency slightly better. The best solution to time issues is to elevate other people. And at the same time, not only elevate other people and what they're doing, but keep driving and working towards you doing only what you do best. Every time someone has embraced this idea and taken even the smallest steps, they have had so much progress from doing that. I don't want to get too far, into that topic right now because of our time limits today. We're focusing on planning, but elevating other people and moving yourself into the circle where you do what you do best and make the most impact will solve your time problems. And even if it's just you or just you and one other person on your team, there's still things that you can do to make strides in that direction. Okay, one of the solutions here to make progress is the second piece of the planning process that I use. And it's called what I do, don't do. All right, this is something you have to get really clear about. Even if you can't do anything about it yet, the starting point in planning is to get clear about what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing. So this is a kind of a conglomeration of different things I've tried and things I've seen from other people and stuff, like everything. But this is a great process to go through. I highly, highly recommend it. So you start with the things that you love to do. These are things that are energizing to you. They're fascinating to you. These are the things you would do even if you didn't have to work anymore. You would still want to do them. So these are the areas that you make the greatest impact for your firm, for your clients, and there shouldn't be more than 3 of them. There might only be 1. That's okay. Maybe 2. But think about, you're not going to know that necessarily in 2 seconds. It takes a little thinking. But think about that, and that's where you should end up in your, for the rest of the longevity of your career. You should be doing those things. The second section is things that are okay. So you don't mind doing them, and you do them really well, and they're probably important to your firm, but they're not energizing to you. This is kind of the middle section that if you were really clear about this, you would do this for a while still, but you would work towards not doing them anymore. You'd have other people to do them. And then the third group is the things that are irritating for you. They're draining or they're frustrating. I could go on and on. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I started to fill this in just for some examples. I hate scheduling in any sort of writing project. When I have to write a summary, I hate writing, even though I'm okay. I'm actually not bad at it, but I just hate it for some reason. It ruins my day. So all the things that drain you or frustrate you, you want to put here. This really helps your partners, the other people on your team. Maybe you don't have much of a team, but you're going to build out a team. It really helps you figure out what you need because you're going to be more successful if these things aren't on your plate. So this is an important part of the planning process. It's the step 2. Step 1 was what do I see? What does our business look like in 3 years? Step 2 is what do I do? What do I don't do? All right. I just want to apologize to John and Stephanie that I don't know how to do this without starting over each time. Okay, I love this one. It's so true. The third obstacle to effective planning is that you don't have the right people in the room. I've learned in my experience that a lot of advisors feel this obligation to have, if they're going to do planning, they feel obligated to have everyone in the room for the planning session. It's a belief, you know, beliefs are powerful. They believe that they will, you know, not be a good person or disenfranchise a team member that's not included. But I want to say this, and I hope you hear this. Planning, you know, as a democracy, carries the risk that you'll compromise on decisions. And we've all been in those kind of meetings. We've all done this. We've all been on the leadership side and the other side. When you try to incorporate everyone's idea, you know, you just end up with a sort of more watered, maybe slightly watered down or very watered down version of what could have been amazing. I know from some reading I've done that when they were having a meeting at Apple about putting one button on the phone, they only had 3 people in the room, but they had like thousands of people employed there. So I'll say I have a couple ideas for you if this is a challenge at all, if this is one of your obstacles. I really encourage getting insight from everyone. I mean, there's nothing I would ever say that would eliminate valuing everybody on your team. But when you're drilling down on decision making, think about this. You want the people who have the most expertise or concern in the matter. So you can set up planning any way you want to. You can have different stages of it. You can have people in the room, people not in the room. There's a lot of things you can do, but don't run that risk that you compromise because everybody had to be in the room. Because what happens is this: a few months later, when you're not feeling inspired at all by whatever the compromise was, it's very difficult or sometimes just even confusing to take any action. Okay, so you want to have the right people in the room. I like that drawing too. All right. Number 4, and I want to just say a little comment here that I don't know who the audience is today, and you might have very few of these obstacles, but I know from working with, you know, planners and firms at all levels that you have probably at least one of these obstacles. So if it's helpful in any way, I'll be very happy. You avoid planning due to perceived conflicts. I think you all know exactly where the points of conflicts or tension lie. One example, I just saw this last week. You know, you might have been hinting about switching your planning software from a self-made Excel program your partner feels is irreplaceable. You know, maybe it was irreplaceable 2 years ago, but you know, technology's moved at light speed lately with all the integration and all these other things. So, you know, that could be a point of conflict. I've seen hundreds of examples of conflict, and I've been surprised by this, that very successful people, all these financial advisors, avoid conflict a lot. I think it's a human nature type of thing that who wants to sit down and say, hey, let's sit down and have a lot of conflict. So, I mean, this can derail your planning process because you know to have meaningful planning, you might get into areas of conflict. So just to raise your awareness about that. Anyway, I think that usually the conflict is between the past and the future. That's what I typically see. And if it's a conflict in values, you know, I imagine you guys are not experiencing that, but that would be a whole different webinar. So a couple of quick ideas. If you are in a situation where you perceive conflicts and so it's not fun to think about doing planning, the first one is to share repeatedly, you know, anytime the opportunity presents itself, to share your commitment. Your primary commitment is always to the right decision for the company because, you know, truthfully, that is in the best interest of all the parties involved, your clients, your team, yourself, all of your families. I mean, the right decision for the company has to always be your commitment. And if you treat this like a core value, people are far less likely to be offended, you know, by their opinion. They recognize that you're trying to get to the right, best answer for the, you know, you're the leader looking out for the greatest future possible for all. So I think if you believe that and you exude that, you'll have far less problems with the whole conflict. The other way to get around this, not get around it, but solve this, is it's a tool that I've used for 14 years now, and it's a strategic coach tool. I'm sure you've all heard of Dan Sullivan's and Strategic Coach. This is by far, in my opinion, the greatest tool they have. It's out there everywhere. You can find it. So I will also include this with the different tools we're sending out through John and Stephanie. I'll just put it up on the screen real quickly, see what it looks like. This is called a strategy circle, and I've used this so many times. You know, I can't stress enough the value of using this. And here's what's great about it. The first thing that you do when you have a problem is, you know, you have a goal. So you're going to name it. And when you name something, it just gives it more life. It's less scary for everybody because you know it's a problem with a lot of obstacles to it. I'm going to use an example here. When this was the first time I used a strategy circle in my life, and it was tremendous. And since then, I've used it countless times in business, but I also use it in my personal life. And the first time I used it was in my personal life. It's a brief story, but I'll tell you because I think, you know, they always say stories help make a point or they're more memorable. So the first time we used a strategy circle, it was regarding one of our sons who was in 6th grade, and he was struggling with school, but he was a really bright kid and a very good kid. But he was struggling with school and getting bad grades and stuff like that. So think about this. You're going to say, hey, Danny, come down here, sit on the couch with Dad and I. We want to talk about your terrible grades. You know, this is like, how do you start that conversation? That's why we avoid it. It's just so painful for everybody, right? So we named this project the Danny Miller Project. We all knew what we were talking about. We were trying to help Danny be more successful. And so we named it the Danny Miller Project. And so that's one of the things I love about the strategy circle is that you name the conflict or the problem. Then what you do is you go to the obstacles column and you're kind of on the same side of the table. You're all identifying, whether it's you and one other person or you by yourself or 4 people, you're identifying what are the obstacles. Why have we, for 4 years, never been able to fix this? And the obstacles actually are perfect because they inform you of what kind of strategies you need to come up with. And it's a great way to tackle a problem as a, you know, without having it be confrontational of 2 or more people. So I highly recommend this. We came up with strategies. I guarantee you, we would have never come up with the strategies we did for Danny if we hadn't gone through this process. They just wouldn't have come to our mind in the course of the day. They never would have. And he ended up going to Orange County High School of the Arts. He started thriving instead of losing his confidence. You know, and today he's an illustrator with Yahoo. And I just feel like the strategy circle really helped us solve that. And you guys have similar issues in your business that you just avoid. So for this obstacle, you avoid planning because of perceived conflict. I highly recommend the strategy circle. Okay. Oops. Oh, man. Oh, here's the arrows. Okay. Sorry. John right now is like putting his hand on his forehead like, what? The 5th of the 6 obstacles is low confidence in your planning process. So this guy is counting on this dog, so he's not too confident in his process. I get this. I think this is like the ultimate in procrastination. We all do it. If we don't know how we're going to approach something, we procrastinate. It's just normal. So having a planning process that you feel confident in is super important to being able to plan. And 5 and 6, we're going to look at the planning process in a second. They kind of go together. You want to have confidence in your process. And then the other thing that happens is that you drift away from your plan. So you got together, you made this great plan, you were actually very excited about it. But now it's 6 months later, and not a lot of it came to life. You were sure you'd be working 4-day week, work weeks by now, and not a lot has changed. So you drifted from the plan. So having a process that you like and then not drifting from it are what we're going to look at right now. Here we go. Okay, this is a template, but I filled in some things to demonstrate this for you guys today. So, by the way, when I say you guys, I mean everybody. It doesn't matter if you're a guy or girl. You're just you guys. So remember you did the 3-year visionary thing. What would make you happy 3 years from now? What does your business look like? And you had the prompting questions. So if you're the only advisor, that's good. If you have a partner, you want to ultimately put that together and talk about it. And then what you do is you take, again, this has been simplified over years of working with it. I think you have to have something somewhat simple that works for you. If it's really complicated, it's you're not going to do it. I continually watch for technology to provide a great planning process. But I think we're really close now. I'm looking at a couple that are really different than what we've had in the past, and it may switch. But at this point in history, I'm still staying with this one. I would love to have, a web-based software program that did this. Okay, so you take the 3-year goals from you, your partners, whatever. When you put them together, you talk about them, and then there might be some overlap or whatever. But on this screen, what you do is you put the 3-year goals here. And there could be 4, there could be 20. It doesn't matter. It's always different. So I made a couple of examples. Daily operations run well without me. We have an excellent planning process with standardized components. The more standardized you are, the more you can customize. So that's a different conversation. We do an annual valuation of our business. We can work from anywhere. So, it could be anything, but these are the 3-year things that collectively you're very excited about. I don't know that I created the greatest ones right there, but they will work for our demonstration today. Then you put an ideal date, because this was 3-year stuff. So some of them might be in 6 months. Some of them might be, you'll be happy if it happens 3 years from now. So you put an ideal date, and then you can sort by the date so that they're prioritized. All right, and then what happens there's 2 more tabs. This is the whole plan. The next tab are the priorities. So think about this. Daily operations run well without me. And this is the problem with most plans. So how do we get there? How do we get the daily operations to run well without me? And this is where you have to really think about what all has to happen for that to be true. And it might take, it will take multiple different things occurring for this big thing to be true. So the priorities tab is where you start to, and you don't have to do it all at once. You're going to keep doing it so that you ultimately accomplish this. So what happens on this page is it's really easy. You click here and all of your 3-plan goals show up. You select the one that you have a specific idea for, daily operations. So that's there. And then you write here, what's the priority? What's the, let me use an example. Daily operations run well without me. The priority is identify what I do currently regarding daily operations. Well, that's a great starting point. And you're saying you'd like that to be due, by the 15th of December. Okay, so you might have under daily operations run well without me, you might have 10 priorities, things that have to be focused on in order for that to be true, to come to life. And so this is where you just keep capturing that stuff. And then the thing that really drives it and makes you fully realize this is you have to be committed to having some frequency of getting back together with whoever you get together with. Maybe it's the whole team, whoever it is. And you have to have somebody on your team that puts that on the calendar and adjusts it when they need to, because you didn't know you'd be going out of town. So somebody owns the responsibility of keeping you together on checking back in with his plan. So it's not like the guy whose treadmill had cobwebs and he was holding a bag from McDonald's. That doesn't happen. So then this is a terrific tool. It has worked for a long time. I call it the project organizer. So you move these priorities over to here, and then you break down what are the pieces. So we'll just do one or two examples. Let's see, what's a good one? The firm valuation. The first two steps is to research companies that provide this service and what is their pricing. Another step is to talk to firms that have had recent valuations done. You can always get connected to somebody like that through John or whomever. You know you can get connected. And then whoever is responsible for that, their name goes here and a target date. And you know, this one up here was streamline insurance policy data. So this had to do with you know, meetings being well prepared. So the steps, you always have to break it down into steps. This is why you and anybody on your team gets stuck. They're not sure what the next step is, or they're not sure if they have consensus to take the next step. So that's why this works really, really well. So you say, hey, well, we obviously know that we've got to decide what data to maintain in the, you know, this was a Redtail CRM. What data we need to maintain in there? And then it has to be manually entered because the insurance companies can't seem to catch up with feeds, but that's another topic. Manually enter from the most recent statement and then include in the Redtail accounts summary. So this is a specific thing that has to be done to improve your entire client process and meeting prep. So everything breaks down into projects, and then you figure out what are the steps and you assign it. And I can promise you, like over time, it's unbelievable how much you accomplish, and you end up, whether there's 2 of you or 10 of you, you end up believing as a team that you can make progress. Another thing that I love about this is when you get everybody's name on here and you see the dates, you can quickly say that's not reasonable. There's no way that Joe can do 5 things by November 20th. So it forces you to be reasonable and set further priorities. So, by the way, it's so weird to be just talking and talking without you guys talking. I'm sorry if you're sick of my voice. Anyway, if you do these easy steps, start with a 3-year, what do I care about? Then, I was supposed to be looking to see if somebody's typing something. I forgot about that. You start with what's important to me. John?
Marty, it's John. You know, one of the questions I had about is, so what do you usually suggest to people on how to get started, you know, and then how often, you know, throughout the year do you look at that, you know, that 3-year plan, and or what do you usually tell people? Because there's 2 places where I think planning usually falls apart. One is just getting started, you know, that first towards doing it and doing it in the right environment, in the right way, and et cetera. And then it's getting back to it. I mean, even the people that have business plans, and a lot of people, I mean, even if they can find it in their desk, oftentimes it's that's kind of what happens. So when you're working with clients, what do you tell them to do to, number one, get started, and then how to keep track and kind of keep their plan fresh?
Okay, great question. So the first thing is, and maybe this is, you know, the catalyst of having, I'm not trying to promote my services, but maybe it is the advantage of having someone be a catalyst, because I ask questions of the 3-year plan, you know, how much do you care about that? How much are you willing to, you know, stick to that and fight for that? And how important is that? Why? Why is that important? What's your purpose? So there's those kinds of things, because it's you know, it's an easy analogy to, you know, working out or losing weight or something. We have the tools. It's about the commitment and some sort of structure in place to hold you to it. So it starts with getting a lot of clarity about what you're excited about. And that's why I always say, if you only, on your 3-year plan, if you only have 2 things, that's great. You don't need to have 20 things. What do you really care about? That's the first thing. What do you really, really care about? And then the next thing is, if you really care about that, then it's, again, John, the tools are there. I mean, I just showed some, and there's all kinds of them out there. But the commitment to saying, we are going to meet on this to reevaluate, to make adjustments, to be accountable to each other. We're going to do that 4 times a year, or, honestly, the best is once a month, because you're going to make more progress if you do it once a month as opposed to 4 times. But 4 times, you're an all-star compared to your peers, most of them. So it's a commitment to saying we're going to get together. And here's the other thing. You, the owner, the advisor, you just share your commitment. Don't you be the person that gets it on the calendar. Have somebody else on your team say, so-and-so is really committed to this. We're going to have this meeting, and I'm going to make sure it's on the calendar, and I'll adjust it if we have to. And I'm going to find out initially what prep do we need, and the owner advisor doesn't have to do that prep. I do that prep. All the owner advisor has to do is come to the meeting and care about something. If you have a methodology and a process, and you as the owner or advisor can just show up and care, you'll be fine. But typically what happens, as what happens with a lot of things, is that the advisor either doesn't have the means or doesn't take the time to elevate someone else to the majority of the responsibility. What's needed from you is your commitment and your thoughts. You shouldn't have to be responsible for anything else. It's the same reason all other kinds of internal meetings get derailed all the time, because the advisor owner feels that they're responsible for the agenda and what's going to, they don't like that. They're busy. They're thinking about their clients. So you have to have a good process, and you have to have somebody else responsible for the logistics. You just have to have the commitment and the care to show up and participate and provide leadership. If I missed part of your question, ask me again, John.
No, now I think a lot of our advisors, of course, are just solo operators. So in that environment, really, it's all about them.
Yep.
For the, they may or may not have staff, etc. But I think if I hear you correctly, I mean, the main thing is whatever that you do have some follow-up scheduled throughout the year, so you don't get to the end of the year and say, wow, I didn't hit any of these goals. How did that happen? I've even had situations, I know back at Capital Analyst, we had to, every employee that reported to me had to have a minimum of like 4 goals that they had to meet in order to get bonuses and raises and things of that nature. And so one of the things that we did was they gave me a report weekly that showed, progress towards their assigned goals, and they knew what they were. And every now and then what we found is that like mid-year, there was a goal they had, and something the business had done had made it impossible for them to meet their goal. And that's not fair. That's not right. It's not right. Not very motivating, And so we would then change that goal. We did, and we would tell, Western and Southern what we were doing, so that they then were back on track and had something to achieve. But if we didn't constantly keep track of that, then what happens at the end of the year is in that situation, it's a very tangible result. You didn't make your goal, so you don't get your raise. Usually with business leaders, it's, man, I didn't get the results I expected. How did that happen? And so I think what I'm hearing from you is your advice is, whatever makes sense for you and your business, but just make sure that when you do build your plan, that you've got some target dates where you're going to come back and assess where you are and make adjustments, along the way, not just grade yourself at the end, right?
Right. I think that it's just the human condition. I mean, we need somebody in the loop with us. I mean, it could even be your spouse, or it could be anybody, somebody that that, you know, you've shared with them what you care about, what's important to you, and, you know, just to have some kind of a regular conversation where you're talking out loud. And I would say, you know, maybe this is a different webinar, but you know, for anyone who is solo, completely by themselves, you probably, you know, for all the work you've done, for all the risks you've taken, for all the value you're creating for your clients, your future will probably be brighter if you have someone else on your team. There's 100 ways to do that. You know, there's thousands and thousands of young, bright people looking for internships or anything. There's so many ways to start expanding, and there's so much reward in that, you know, for you, your clients, your personal life, everything. So, you know, and the minute you have someone else with you on your team that's, you know, dedicated to you or your clients, or, you know, your processes, what it's focused, it opens so many doors. So, and I think it only takes, you know, one other person to really help you with planning, someone a little bit closer to the situation that kind of knows what's going on. Because when we're planning by ourselves, you know, that would be like me. This is what it feels like to me. If I was the only person on the earth that knew I wanted to lose 10 pounds, who cares? I don't have to do that. You know, you don't get the beauty and the synergy and the energy of collaborating with another human being. So I just think that, you know, first and foremost, I don't know any of your solo advisors, and I know people build amazing businesses with incredible efficiencies these days. So I'm not in a position to speak to that as a general rule. But I think collaborating with other human beings, even one or outsourced people, certainly can elevate what's possible. But yeah, John, it's funny. I remember when we had the value drivers at Lincoln Financial Group. John and I were both regional CEOs with Lincoln Financial, and it was motivating. I mean, I remember I wanted to beat you on that, and you were some sort of damn all-star up there in Oregon, so that was hard. But it is motivating. I just think that I look at all financial advisors as business owners. That's how I see them, because they're doing all the things that it takes to be a business owner, and they've earned that freedom. So I get more excited if they're creating meaningful goals for themselves and their practice and their clients than rolled up goals. Maybe you're going to fire me from being on the future webinars, but that's what I think. But you have to have a process, and you have to commit to some kind of frequency to revisit it. Think about NFL games. I mean, it's football season. They all come with a great game plan, and they are continually revising it and adjusting it throughout the game. And that's what we have to do in our businesses. Our first plan is not necessarily going to work or be right. You know, so you have to revisit it, or nothing will change. And that's what a bigger future is all about, is finding ways to create the right change for things you care about.
Well, listen, I appreciate it. And anybody else have any questions at the moment? You know, first of all, Marty, thank you. I mean, I know you've spent a lot of time creating these tools and using them in your business and with advisors. We really appreciate you sharing them with us and your insights.
My pleasure.
On how, you know, do effective planning. A couple of things, folks. We are going to be following up with you on some of the tools that Barney's agreed to share with us. We'll also be including some information on Marty and her firm, ClearPath Consulting, and then, you know, we'll be following up with you folks on just anything we can do as a firm to perhaps help you with the planning process and help you with goal setting. every good business that I've ever run across had a plan, and most good business owners they track 3 or 4 things that matter, and they have 3 or 4 goals, and they might have, and then as part of that in our businesses, and Marty spoke about this earlier, are so tied to our personal lives, more so than I think than a lot of other businesses are. But as small business owners, each one of you, your personal life and your business life, both financially and otherwise, are very connected. And Marty and I, when we were at Lincoln, we worked with the guy. His name was Mark Shear, and he had, I don't know, I always thought he was a little bit of a goof, but he had one thing that really stuck with me. And it was that really everything we did in life and in business were about 3 things. It was about money, time, and fun. And so everything, a lot of the decisions we make, if it creates more money for us, but it takes more time away from our family, that actually might not be the best thing we could be doing. And unless we're clear about what our goals are and what we're trying to achieve in both our business and our personal lives, it's real easy for us to create conflict in what looks like progress. Okay, so I think if you're doing these things, make sure you also put into your business plan personal things about your family, your health, yourself, that you keep track of as well, to make sure that whatever business progress you might be making isn't actually taking away from the joy that we all should be getting from the businesses that we run. So
I agree.
Yeah, so just be on the lookout for the follow-up, everybody. And one last thing before I let you go, and I just remembered this. At that, especially if you're managing money yourself, or if you find yourself in competitive situations and taking over accounts from time to time, and if you're also, just like most of us, struggling with how to properly manage the client's goals and risk tolerance, I'm going to take a really hard look at that Riskalyze program. It's probably the best at what they do in the industry right now. And Lincoln has managed to negotiate a very nice price at $105 a month. So I'll get that confirmed, and we'll get that information out to you guys as well. All right, so listen, we're right on time. Thanks everybody for attending, and please have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll look forward to connecting with you again next month. In the meantime, anything we can do for you, let us know. Take care.
Great. Thank you, John.
You're welcome, Marty. Thanks.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.